Welcome back to another edition of Sports Den, the post NCAA, the obituary volume edition of our show, where we talk about the Lobo basketball team, which was eliminated in the South Region second round in Cleveland. I had a chance to go out there and watch them play, and I got to tell you, James, it was Sunday night was one of the most surreal moments of my journalistic career. Not so much because of the game. But as I'm sitting there, and you saw this a lot on TV. Anyone who's paying attention could see me. But Rick Pitino came in there, and he was quite literally the biggest celebrity in the building at that point. He comes in and he sits right behind me. I'm talking right behind. He's behind me is like the box seats,
like right there where the
he's 24 inches behind me. And the entire time he kept talking to me about the game and the stats, because at that point, Colorado State's playing Maryland, and they're coming down to the last few seconds, and he's asking me about the game. He says, "Hey, can you turn on the Colorado State-Maryland game? What are the stats? Who's got all the points?" Like, Coach, I'm working here, man. Come on. Give me a second. So, yeah, and then, of course, the Lobos go up by 10 points, and it looks like they're going to win, and the two-thirds of the arena is Michigan State fans. Are all in shock. And then of course reality set in. By the end of the night, I'm writing the Lobos lose stories.
Yeah, the obituary.
Yeah.
Wow, man, you had yourself quite the run there, man. Should have just said this, to hell with the stats. Just go hang out with Pitino.
And his family. It's because usually from where I sit, the family's on it. Basically, they're a good 30, 40 feet away from me, so I'm not really exposed to the Pitino stuff. And I got to tell you, man, his family's crazy. They scream and yell the entire time. His wife is one of the more vocal people in the entire building. Yeah, but here's a shot of me, and look at Pitino right behind me. There's Pitino, the vampire that he is, sitting right behind me. So, but his brother,
he really does dress down when he's not on TV, right?
They had to wear that scarf to, because he's a vampire.
Yeah, but you got to protect your identity.
His brother was at the game. His younger brother, I believe his name was Chris, and he was sitting next to his dad. And just as the game started, one of the officials, and I forget the guy's full name, he goes by Anthony, but everyone calls him Tony. He's a Big East official. And Pitino's younger brother was all over this guy. He's like, "Hey, Tony, don't F this up. Hey, Tony, what do we have to do to get a foul call? Hey, Tony, look at the fouls. Hey, Tony, are you allergic to free throws?" It was unbelievable. They were all over this official. And out of the entire family, by far the quietest person, the most stoic person was Rick Pitino. He didn't hardly say, other than asking me for stats, he didn't say hardly anything the entire game. And the rest of the family is just losing their minds behind me. So it was funny. It was funny to see that because I'm not really exposed to that. So it was just a very different experience.
Well, somebody's got to keep their composure in that family because surely wasn't anybody else, even Richard there, man. Although you got to admit, when you look at the 22-11 foul count, I'd be livid too.
Yeah,
especially the call on Nelly, that fourth foul. The phantom call that really, I think, kind of turned the game around. Because if they don't call that or they call the foul on Fears, we're going the other direction, and maybe the Lobos retake the lead.
Well, yeah, so there's about 8 minutes to go, 8+ minutes to go in the game. They call the fourth foul on him, changed everything because you got to take him out. And Nelly is a player who hasn't fouled out all season. And that's one thing the Lobos never really had to deal with was Nelly foul trouble. He had a couple of games where he had 4, but it was never really an endangered species kind of issue. And the thing is about that team is you take him out of the game and you put a Tiki in
there, and you could just see how totally different that team was.
He's a liability on offense. You're essentially playing 4-on-5 at that point because a Tiki can maybe go up for a rebound and do something like that and be the guy who just tries to clog the lane and be super aggressive on defense, but he's not an option on offense. And that was a killer for them because at that point, you're about 7 or 8 minutes away from going to Atlanta. The game was tied at that point, and it just changed everything. You put everything on Donovan Dent's shoulders, and without a guy in the middle to distract Their
Yeah.
defense, and quite frankly, Michigan State's defense is really strong, very, very physical. They're a classic Big Ten team. And it's just one of these things where it's an eye opener for anyone from the Mountain West, anyone from this part of the country, because you're not used to playing that style all year. You can lift weights, you can bang and do all that stuff you can with the Boise States of the world. But man, you get in there against Michigan State, where they're just as athletic as you, and they just bump and grind the whole time, and they weren't used to it. And that was the difference in the last 8 minutes of the game with Nelly on the bench. You had to out finesse them. You're just not going to out finesse Michigan.
No, you're not. And one thing that I noticed, even in the game against Marquette, and I know, Donovan Dent went off for 21, but you could tell he wasn't getting the same kind of space that he was for his shots like he was during the conference play. He was really having to work extra hard to get his shot off. And I think there was a stretch there early in the second half where, he goes in for this wild layup and he misses, and then he loses the ball in the next possession, and Pitino pulled him. And I think it was in part because he kind of saw that he was playing a little bit over his head, and he needed to kind of adjust that thinking.
Well, now literally just minutes before we came on,
Yeah, it's literally minutes.
it came out on Twitter that Donovan Dent was entering the transfer portal. Not hugely surprising. It doesn't mean that he's actually going to leave, but I think what he is he's dipping his toes into the free agent market
Just
and
to see what's out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's going to find that he can make a couple $1 million out of NIL. And I just don't know if UNM has that kind of money, because you're talking about a school that already had fairly limited funds to begin with.
Yeah, and the price for players is just going up.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to keep up with it. And I'm not sure that, the NIL account that they have is able to keep pace with that.
No, you got to pay True Washington. You got to go out and find replacements for Nelly, and it's going to be rough. Plus, you've also got a football team you got to take care of too.
Yeah,
that they're trying to rebuild. I just don't think they have enough money. The only thing that keeps Donovan Dent here is loyalty to the school, and that loyalty really starts with Richard Pitino. And
I was going to say, really, that's the elephant in the room right now, right? Is he staying? Is he going? I mean, already this morning, I checked our Twitter feed, and he's going to West Virginia. He's going to Villanova. He's going to Xavier. There are people out there already saying like he's going to get a 5-year deal with West Virginia, a 3-year deal at Villanova. And it's just, man, the fires are out there. Shoot, I even saw something where he was looking at where he was a top candidate at VCU, and I'm thinking, is VCU that much better than UNM from that perspective? But yeah, but obviously the interest for Pitino, especially after this weekend, has gone through the roof. And I think we both kind of knew that if they had made it to the Sweet 16, that just increased his chances of leaving just tenfold. And it's already a pretty good. The odds are pretty good that he's going to leave anyway.
Yeah, I don't see him going to VCU because he's talked about not wanting to be in a conference that's a one bid league, which is what the Mountain West will become once it cuts in half after this coming season. So if he comes back to UNM, it's just a 1-year deal. You're going to have to go through this again next season. Yeah. I would say, look, on Saturday was just a bizarre day, because you wake up Saturday and one of the first news stories of the day is that Texas had fired Rodney Terry.
Yeah.
Mountain West for a while.
Right off the bat.
State, and immediately Pitino's name was attached to it because Del Conte, who's the athletic director at Texas, is from New Mexico. He's from Texas. He knows a lot of people here. He's very familiar with UNM. So it was immediate that Pitino's name was at the top of the list. And literally 3 hours later, they had already hired.
They already hired somebody. Yeah. They already had his replacement.
And so then Xavier's spot becomes open, and then you think then his name is immediately attached to that. And then you have the Richmond newspaper on Saturday, really started Friday night, that Pitino is a top candidate at VCU. And then like literally every single job that comes open,
his name's going to be attached
to it. But the one that has stayed around the entire time for the most part is Villanova. Villanova I understand that Villanova is after Maryland's coach. He is their top guy, and that could explain why Villanova hasn't actually pulled the trigger yet, because Maryland's still alive. Yeah,
and then you've also heard Mick Cronin at UCLA. His name's hot, and then But this is where the dominoes keep falling. If one of those two guys takes that job, well, then you just move Pitino over to either Maryland or UCLA.
You
And
feel like you
could you
imagine
imagine that? Taking another dip in the Lobo pool for a basketball coach.
history repeating itself. Yeah, about the only major job I have not seen his name attached to was Minnesota, but his name was kind of
For good
attached
reason.
because they talked about him coaching in the big, and that was the big thing with Izzo behind the scenes. Which I'll say this: look, that the Cleveland Regional had Alabama was there and Michigan State was there, so they had two big time programs. But Tom Izzo was by far the most engaging person there. And he walks into the room, he looks like a grumpy old man. He looks like he would just as soon throw a wrench in your face or something. He's that guy, but he was super engaging, just very great storyteller, extremely complimentary of Pitino. And he talked about Pitino because Pitino coached in the Big Ten for 8 years at Minnesota. And in a lot of ways, coaching at Minnesota, the Mountain West equivalent would be like Wyoming, a team that with potential that you can do well, but notoriously underfunded, notoriously undersupported. You might get occasional crowds at Wyoming and be exciting, but it'll never be San Diego State or New Mexico or even UNLV.
Oh, no.
It'll just not. And so you're fighting that uphill battle, and that's what Minnesota is in the Big Ten. You're in the middle of Minneapolis where you're competing against an NBA, an NHL, Major League team, NFL, WNBA. They have Major League Soccer there. There's high school hockey's big in Minnesota. So you're fighting for everything you can there. And that was one of the discussions that Tom Izzo had, talking about what a challenge it is to coach at Minnesota and how he always felt Pitino got the raw end of the deal coaching there. They fired him after 8 seasons. He's like, that kid, of course, he was in his 30s when he got fired. I mean, he's 30 years old when he got the Minnesota job. Just think, if you're 30 years old and you're a head coach in the Big Ten, and he coached there for 8 seasons, and he got fired. He said, look, he just got the raw end of the deal, and you always knew that Richard was a better coach than that. He just needed to go to a place that embraced him and gave him a chance. Well, New Mexico. And so, that's one of the questions I asked Izzo when we were out there is, hey, look, with the advent of the NIL, the transfer portal spinning completely out of control, with revenue sharing coming up, and conference realignment, creating these super conferences with huge, 7 or 8 figure multimedia deals, the separation of the haves and the have-nots is getting wider by the second. And the Mountain West is basically the best non-power conference in the country, but that gap is growing by the second. So I asked Izzo if he thinks that the Mountain West essentially becomes like a feeder program to the power schools. If you come here, you do well, you get promoted from AAA. Yep. And he didn't, without actually saying it, he said that's what's going to happen. New Mexico's never really been a stepping stone program, but it will be now. Yeah. Jason Eck, if Eck does well in football, he'll be coaching.
He'll be gone in 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it's just gonna be that way. There's more money, there's more opportunity for these guys, and it sucks if you're a Lobo fan, if you're an Aggies fan, but that's just the reality of it. If you have any measures of success, the people who brought it to you are going to leave, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, and I think really that's I kind of piggybacking off that a little bit. I think St. Francis just announced today, their board of directors announced they're not just going to go from Division 1. They're going to Division 3 to compete. But I think that's what you're going to start seeing more and more, is that as schools realize we can't compete at this level, we can't afford to spend the kind of money it takes to be able to compete at this level, they're going to start looking at Division 2. You're going to start seeing Division 3, Division 3 start to grow a little bit more. And really, the Division 1 will eventually just become the super conferences. I mean, that's really where it's going to end up. And everybody else is just going to be, Division 2, Division 3, which, great for them, because I think the quality will obviously improve there. Not that it's been bad, but I think people have to figure out where's your landing spot and what's best for your school versus what's best for your fan base. Because honestly, those two ideals are incongruent with each other right now. Because let's face it, a place like UNM, they can't afford to compete. Well, shoot, even a Texas Tech. Look at it, just how far behind they are, Texas Tech now, compared to where they were maybe 10, 15 years ago. You would have thought that the gap wasn't that big, but every year it just gets bigger and bigger. And at some point, schools are just going to pull the plug on trying to compete at that level and just try to compete at a level that's comfortable for them.
Yeah, which is hard for fans to accept because a school like UNM, a conference like the Mountain West and the WAC before it, is you've always felt like you understood that your place was kind of in the back of the line, that your pecking order was down a ways, but you still had a chance to do something at that national championship level. If all the stars align, if all the planets aligned, you could do something special. And now it's starting to feel like that is slipping away. That the best
if the stars align, what we saw this weekend is basically where you're going to get. If you can win one game and get to and maybe put a scare, into that high seed that you're going to see in the round of 32, maybe that's the Sweet 16 dream is maybe past UNM, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, and it's funny because there was probably a good 2,000 fans from UNM out there, which is a big showing.
It is, yeah.
New Mexico, and they were far outnumbered by Michigan State fans because Michigan State, it's just a few hours away by car.
Exactly. Yeah.
But New Mexico, by and large, had the second largest contingency there, and that includes Alabama. Alabama brought a ton of cheerleaders. Yeah, but Alabama's band was amazing, by the way. But the most media out there came from the Detroit area, and Albuquerque had the second most. The Albuquerque, New Mexico media was pretty strong out there, and everyone said that. Everyone's in. It was as opposed to like Michigan State. Everyone expects them to be there, and Tom Izzo is this guy who can walk on water, and they've got all American guys. New Mexico was seen as who are these guys? And as I was sitting there watching the Michigan State game, immediately to my right was one of the stat runners. She had organized a staff that got stats and gave it to the TBS crew and the radio guys and all that. And she was just sitting there because, what is a Lobo? And so it was funny. You explained it to him that it's a Spanish word for wolf.
Yeah.
It was this cultural awareness, like, gosh, there's a whole new world out there. But as I was talking to some of the fans between games, a lot of them were like, why can't have the NCAA tournament back in Albuquerque? And my thing is because of this building. Look, this is where the Cavaliers play. Last year was in Memphis. So it's the first and second round. This is an NBA facility. So there's 20,000 seats in here. And it's not benches. They're actual seats. They're cushioned seats. And there's multiple levels. So if you have to get up and go to the bathroom, all you have to do is walk up about 20 steps and you're inside a tunnel that takes you right to a bathroom. In the pit, if you're sitting down in the 45th row, you got to walk all the way to the top.
Heart Attack City right there, buddy.
That city, and you're getting all the way up there, and you got to walk around for a bathroom. There's like no trash cans anywhere. So you can't just where these NBA facilities, they're built to accommodate big crowds that can get you in and out quickly. Where the pit's literally a hole in the ground. It's just a hole in the ground with bench seats, and you can move equipment in there. Like the NCAA uses, or for the men's tournament, they have a unique floor for every single event. So they don't just use the Cavaliers floor; they bring in their own floor. Well, UNM, the pit isn't designed for that. They do not have the space to bring in the size of a floor that the NCAA requires. It's because it's not just the playing surface. You have to have a good 20 feet of berth in every direction. The pit just does the footprint of the floor in the pit is not big enough for that. Yeah. And the locker rooms. Oh my gosh. So for the Marquette game, the Lobos there's a hockey team that plays there. They're called the Cleveland Monsters. They're an AHL team. They're the tier below the NHL, but they're in the Cleveland Monsters locker room. And this thing was nicer than anything you had at the pit. I mean, this thing was beautiful, big locker room. And you walk back there, and the hallways are just lined in LED lighting and really cool lighting. And they had the mascots for each team on the walls. It was like this, just a first class.
Yeah. And then you contrast that with UNM, man. Could you imagine them being in the visitors' locker room? Oh my God, where everybody's cramped in like this 20-foot space.
Yeah. It was crazy because
teams would be throwing fits about that.
Saturday's practice, they worked out Saturday, and it was closed to the media. What they do is they shut the entire arena down so no one could get in. You can be in the building, you just can't see the practices. And they put the Lobos in a smaller thing, and everyone's super apologetic. Oh gosh, sorry, Alabama gets the big locker room today,
Yeah.
and so they put them in this small locker room. Was nice. It was really nice. Thinking, holy cow, this is how the other half lives, and that's why UNM can never have the tournament here again, because you look, even if you walk out of Rocket Arena, there's restaurants everywhere. You can within 2 or 3 blocks, you have your pick and choice of everything. And at UNM, there's a Chick-fil-A about
Chick-fil-A right down. You got to get in your car, go down the road about a half mile.
You got to cross
Gibson.
Yeah.
And then if you go north, you run into the student ghetto, and I mean the homeless issue. I mean that's another topic that we could spend hours musing about. But yeah, it's not exactly in the best place. Let's just put it that way.
Well, and then the Detroit media guys were asking me about the pit, because everyone's heard of the fan stuff at UNM, but no one's really aware of what it's actually like. Yeah. And so I was trying to describe the pit to them, and they said, it's not, honestly, it's not that nice. It's just a building with a hole in the ground with a concrete
well, until about 20 years ago, it just looked like a warehouse when you
walked in. Yeah. It's a lot nicer now than it used to be, but it's not. It doesn't feel like you really get a sense of how much money is in some of these other buildings.
Yeah,
you're talking $750 to $1 billion arena where,
Could you imagine how much it's gonna cost to replace the pit?
Oh, you'd have.
And people are not going to want just like a standard, arena like Cleveland has. They're going to want something that resembles the pit, because there's an ambiance to it and a mystique to it that, I think it's kind of what drives people there. People love it because, I mean, as they say, don't have much here in New Mexico, but what we've got is ours, and people love that place because of how special it is.
And you couldn't duplicate the pit again.
You couldn't. No, not now.
You could try to build it underground, but really the arena, the floor in a place like Rocket Arena is just a start, because it's quite literally a building with seats in it. That's what it amounts to. Because you got behind the scenes, like you walk in, it's extremely confusing. The innards of the building that is underneath the grandstand is this massive oval of just a huge hallway. But that's where they put all the food. That's where they put. Yeah, all the employees are working. That's the media center is under there.
It's literally like a mini convention center, right? And it's just an arena.
Yeah, and it's just TV stuff and wires everywhere, and you could not do that in the pit anymore. It's not possible.
It's great for what it is for what it is for this area, but the days of the NCAA tournament coming here, they're gone. It's over with, unless they decide to spend about $500 million, because that's probably what it's going to cost to build a new arena. And then you're going to have the arguments. Okay, where do you want it? Do you want to build it over the old pit? Do you want to bring it downtown? Because again, like you talked about before, you want it in an area where people can go out and go get something to eat if they want to. If they leave and everything. You also want people to feel safe. And let's be honest, there aren't necessarily a lot of places in Albuquerque right now that you kind of feel safe. So, you have to figure all of those logistics. And, once you get out of this little bubble and you see what's out there, you sort of realize, this town's way behind everybody else.
Well, it's also a city and a state that rejected the United Stadium. We're talking like $70 or $80 million, which is not a lot of money to build.
It's a drop in the bucket now compared to what you see now with stadiums.
Yeah, the fact that they built Isotopes Park for $28 million makes you just want to laugh, because it's like, oh my God, they built that thing 25 years ago, and it's still just a beautiful facility. And the soccer team, I think, look, I'm not a soccer guy. I've never really been into it at all.
Come on, Will, you got to jump on the bandwagon someday.
But football. I think the United has actually earned the right to have its own stadium.
They have. Yeah.
And we're talking $70 or $80 million. You could put it downtown on the corner of Lomas and Broadway, where they wanted to put the baseball stadium. But everyone's so reluctant to do anything like that. That would be the perfect place for a multi-purpose arena. You could do that.
I mean, it looks like the plan for it to be at Bloom Fiesta Park is going to go. So, I mean, at some point, probably in the next 3 or 4 years, that's where they'll end up.
which
But
is just one of the worst locations ever. That's
it's
just
bad. It's bad enough just trying to get there for the balloon fiesta, but imagine just for the United.
yeah,
And I
because
imagine they'll be using it for other events too. I mean, I could easily see the NMAA using that stadium to hold its state championships like they do right now at UNM.
yeah. Well, just the stuff that makes the most sense in New Mexico is the thing that everyone's opposed to the most. They could build a brand new stadium in downtown Albuquerque, revitalize parts of it, and
No,
no.
no.
I tell you what, let's all go down to Lowe's. We'll buy a couple gallons of paint. We'll repaint the railing at the old place.
See, looks good as new.
Yeah, I don't understand it all. People still complain and moan about all the other stuff, like the Nusenda Stadium. People still complain about how expensive that place was for high school sports in the West Side.
And it's a nice stadium, man. I mean, you get what you paid for there. It's really nice.
Yeah, and so it's just a mess. One of the things I really love about going to cover the tournament is there's, from my perspective, there's not a lot of downtime. I spend almost my entire time cranking out stories. I think I wrote 11 stories in 3 days. So I'm like mentally, I'm out of bandwidth. But one of the things I really like is you just have a chance to make small talk with a lot of the people who are kind of the movers and shakers behind the scenes for the school.
Yeah.
One of the conversations I had with some of the people out there were about the football stadium, because like Danny Gonzalez used to say when he was still coaching here, he said, nothing gets people motivated quite like orange barrels. If you can show people that you're constructing stuff, it's going to get you excited. And so the grand plan for the football stadium is to do something on the east side. And the east side of the stadium, that's the part where the TV cameras look down on the field, and you always see that wide open expanse of emptiness from unused seats.
Yeah.
The plan was to maybe construct some sort of luxury suite, to like rip out the top section, create like a luxury suite system. And so visually, it'd be much more appealing than what we have right now, which is just swaths of concrete and empty seats and
Yes.
benches. And my immediate knee-jerk reaction was, if I'm a high roller at UNM and I'm going to pay a lot of money to sit on that side of the stadium in my glassed-in case, I'll be looking right into the sun.
Exactly. Especially on those late afternoon, early evening starts. Yeah.
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 So unless
You can't you literally wouldn't be able to see the first half.
yeah, you'd have to put like a 400-foot wall or screen on the other side of the stadium that just blocks out the sun. Like at that point, just build the dome or turn the stadium
just hand out
sideways.
sunglasses, right at every suite,
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. So
that's a great idea. I need to tell that to Chris for her work.
yeah, and
Just
so
Tito sponsoring sunglasses at each at each suite. That'd be
well,
awesome.
and it all kind of leads back to the whole thing with UNM and money. It's like, all right, if the Mountain West is about to splinter in half and the leftovers are going to be the teams that are in there, why would you want to put $300 million into a football stadium that's going to go nowhere? And why would you want to do that for a basketball team that arguably one of the best teams in school history, and they only got to the second round? And so, and then if you have any measure of success, that person is gone. So
exactly. Yeah. I mean, you're basically building these things for somebody else to enjoy for a minute. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing there that, there's nothing to keep these people here. I mean, because they know that this is just a 2 or 3 or 4 year stop to wherever you're going next.
Yeah.
And that's all that UNM is right now.
Gosh, Donovan Dent, I really like the kid. He's always been great with me. And honestly, like most of the players on that team were just really good.
Yeah.
At these tournaments, we have access to them that we just don't get here for home games, because they seal the players off pretty
well. Gosh, it's ridiculous what they do.
Yeah.
It's like they're presidents. It's like, no.
Yeah. Well, when I was there, I had a chance to interview True Washington. I went into the locker room, and it's the first time I've really had a chance to just interview him, just the two of us. And we talked for a good 10 minutes. And I thought, what a nice kid he is. I'm just a really down-to-earth kid, but no one ever sees that. They only see that exterior. And the same thing with Donovan. They like to see Donovan's his mood in the locker room, his interaction with other players. Although that's that's the kind of thing that can endear these players to the public. And then you fall in love with these guys and you think the world of them. And now you're into the portal and they're all gone. And Coach,
Speaking of which, guess who's now in the transfer portal?
Who
A
now?
minute ago.
Who?
Take a wild guess.
True Washington?
Yep.
Yeah. True's good for him.
Yeah.
Which I'm telling you, where there's smoke, there's fire. So that means Pitino is definitely gone.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? I don't begrudge the kids. I mean, the money that's out there right now, you got to go. You have to explore. You got to find out what your value is, and if you can make more at some place that you're willing to go to, okay, fine. I mean, their fallback position is they'll people here at UNM would be happy to have them come back if they don't feel comfortable with where they're with the offers they're getting and the situations that they're going to walk into. They can always come back. They know that door is always open because UNM will take them back in a heartbeat. But those guys, they deserve to get to test their market, to test the market and see what their value is.
Absolutely, because look, let's be real. Donovan, Dent, and True Washington, as good at players as they are, they're not going to be making that kind of money when they start their professional careers. No. So if Donovan Dent could go out and make $2 million playing for one season or 2 seasons for Duke or Villanova or whomever, you got to let him do it, because if he lands a G League contract, there's not a G League contract on earth that's going to pay him $2 million a year. So you got to get what you can while you can.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's unfortunate to see, but I think we all kind of knew this was gonna happen. If any Lobo fans out there are upset about these guys, leaving the school or just opening up their options there, I mean, you're living in a world that died 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, there's the idea, the sense of loyalty and everything. Well, that only goes so far.
Yeah.
I mean, in this new world, you chase the dollar bills. I mean, there's no other way to put it.
Of course. Yeah, the big loss for UNM in the transfer portal is Shane Dumas-Sanchez, who announced yesterday.
He started it. We got to blame him.
Yeah.
If he had just decided to just hold the rope and just stay at UNM, nobody else would have left.
Devastating news to have the guy who started all the negativity this year jump into the portal. So
isn't that funny? We totally forgot about all of that. It was a big story for like about a week, and then as soon as they started winning, it was like, oh yeah, what about that dude?
Yeah,
who's the guy that broke his arm? Wasn't that like 2 or 3 years ago now?
Yeah, he'll be playing for Northern New Mexico College in Espanola, I'm sure, next season. So we'll see.
Yeah. I'm sure he's really looking forward to that.
Yeah, maybe he'll give us an excuse to go out and cover Northern next year. If they had ever return a phone call or an email.
Yeah, that's true.
We have a college program 30 minutes up the road, but yet you can't get anything. They might as well be playing on the dark side of the moon.
Yeah, pretty much. It might as well be UNM, Chama for all that matters. Nobody's going to go there.
Yeah. Well, it was fun to go out to Cleveland. I'm glad I went. Glad I had a chance to share some stories. It was a good time. But I will say this: Cleveland weather sucked.
Of course, we warned you, man. We warned you.
Yeah.
It's not short wearing weather. At least not for those 3 or 4 days.
Good night, man. I tell you what, of course, the travel arrangements were just not my best move ever. I flew back yesterday, which was Monday. I had to check out of my hotel at 10 o'clock. My flight didn't leave till 6:50.
Oh, that's the worst when you're just sitting around just with nothing to do.
Yeah, I had to bribe the lady at the front desk to let me leave my bags there, so I have to carry around my bags looking like a homeless person. And so I had a chance to walk around, and it was 38 degrees yesterday, and the wind was blowing. So the wind chill was like 20, which is fine in downtown because you're shielded for the most part. But every now and then you'd come across an alleyway.
Oh, and then it would just whip you right. It just get right in your face, right? And you'd feel every degree of that 20 degrees, didn't you?
Like, my gosh,
Is it just me, or especially when you go into places with higher humidity? The cold is just different. It's definitely more bone chilling than it is, say, 20 degrees in Albuquerque. It's like, okay, 20 degrees. I'm like I've been in Denver before, and I've been in Kansas City where it's been that cold, and it's like, no, I just don't want to do that. That is horrible. And then you had wind.
Yeah, it bites you. That was the thing I noticed too. Is your extremities, your fingers, and your nose.
Oh yeah, they go so fast, and and all of a sudden you can just feel your body temperature drop like a degree or two, and you just start shaking and everything. I hate those days.
Yeah, I did bring home a Cleveland Browns little racquetball for my dogs. Of course, I don't know if you can hear them. They're out in the back barking their heads off. Of course, they're quiet all day. I put them on the backyard, and we start a podcast. They start.
Yeah, yeah. Of all
Yeah.
times for them to go crazy. Then
Yeah, if we're doing this when my kids are home, that's my kids never talk to me until I start a podcast or I do our afternoon budget meetings.
I'm surprised they haven't tried to interrupt you.
Well, they're fortunately it's a school day, so
Okay. So
yeah.
spring break was last week for you guys, or what?
Last week, yeah.
Oh, nice. So not only did you leave us, but you left your kids there all alone for spring break, huh?
Yeah, parent of the year. The week before was the state basketball tournament, and then last week I had to fly to Cleveland. Of course, the same week where my wife is in Belize for an archaeological tour, and so
the house is still upright, man.
Yeah, I was surprised to come home and find out that they didn't auction off all our furniture for McDonald's food or something.
Of course.
No, but that's the beauty of having a college age kid is you bribe the college age kid to come back and help.
Is he the mature one?
He is the mature. Well, he's the college age one. So,
yeah. Well, he's mature compared to those two. Let's be honest.
Yeah, but we'll close this with my experience at the concession stand at Rocket Arena. Which
yes, what we've been dying to hear.
Yeah, I was gonna try to write this story when I was out there, but I was, just get a little busy, and so.
Well, you just run out of words after a while, dude. Let's be honest, man. When you write 11 stories in 3 days, you eventually run out of words.
Yeah, there was on the concourse, the main concourse of Rocket Arena. There's a place called Bandito's Cantina. It's like, oh, hey, neat. They got a Mexican food place. So I went and checked it out, and like I shared with James and our sports designer Eric Hedlund, there was a menu item called the Gringo Bowl. It's like, what is it? So I asked the lady behind the counter. Of course, she doesn't know. She's probably making $8 an hour working behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And so I asked her what a Gringo Bowl was. She said, "Well, it's basically the same thing as everything else, except we don't put meat or beans in it." It's like, so no meat.
Basically, it's a salad.
Yeah, right. There's no meat, no beans. That makes a Gringo. I think what makes it a Gringo Bowl is you take all the spices out of it, and so they had salsa.
Out of it.
Yeah, they had salsa there, which is basically mashed tomatoes.
Dude, next time you go east, we got to give you a supply of green chili and real salsa.
Yeah,
you can kind of sample that around to everybody and show them this is what real Mexican food tastes like.
See, to them, Mexican food is like Tabasco sauce. That's super spicy. So there's a lot of things about New Mexico that just blows their minds. They can't grasp the wide open spaces or how dry it is or how far away from everything we are. And I think one of the questions they always want to ask is, do you guys have stoplights there? Are there Walmarts there? It's like, yeah, we got all that stuff. In fact, they just wired the whole state for electricity like 6 years ago. It's awesome. You turn lights off now.
We've got a special lane for all of our donkeys. All right.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to bribe the guards with fire water at the door. But other than that,
don't drink the water. Don't drink the water. Bring your own. Right.
Like it really does kind of give you a sense of purpose in life, where we are in New Mexico. We are so far away that people cannot understand.
They don't have this concept that we're actually a state, right?
There's a place
did they compliment you on your English too?
Yeah. It's interesting to just be considered like the outsider, it was just pretty fun, but it was a good experience. It's a huge bummer they didn't get to Atlanta. They were 7 minutes away.
I was already starting to slowly plan my trip in.
Yeah,
I totally did not take the lessons that I wrote everybody to take on Sunday. I got caught up in it too for a minute.
Yeah, gosh, could have been out there with Michigan and Alabama or actually no, it's Michigan and who's on the other side? Auburn is on the other side. Yeah, and then Ole Miss. Yeah, and so Lobos would have been playing Ole Miss, would have been crazy. So
hey, if they beat Michigan State, they're going to the Final Four. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. So, oh well. wasn't
Oh,
easy. Here we are, less than 48 hours later, and everyone's leaving. All the
yeah,
rats are coming off the ship.
that's
So,
usually how it goes with all the when the party's over, man. Everybody's leaving.
yeah,
Last guy out, turn out the lights.
yeah. Well, we'll shift gears next week when we get into our podcast to start talking about high school sports again. High school baseball, softball, all the spring sports are
We can
underway.
talk about off-season basketball.
Off season, well, there is no off season for basketball in the
No,
state,
there isn't. Not here.
so we can
Not
always
here.
touch on the basketball thing. So, yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
I
do
can't tell you how many texts I get about people wanting to know what jobs are opening up. It's like, dude, it's barely, it's not even March yet, or not even April yet, and they're already asking.
yeah.
The body's still barely cold. It's not buried yet, and they want to know.
All right, we'll get into all that stuff.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap it up because now I need to go write the postmortem on True Washington and Donovan.
That's right, and Donovan Dent. God
Yeah.
bless you, man. You're doing the Lord's work.
Yeah,
Hopefully, you'll be around for next week.
just hopefully they have enough people to fill out all the uniforms they have.
Dude, that face you're giving right now just looks like you just look like you wish you were back in Cleveland and you just stayed in that hotel room for like a week.
What I should have done is just taken a week or two off of work and left it to you and shut my phone off. That's what I should have done.
Yeah, you should have, man. You should have.
Yeah.
You should have left your phone in Cleveland.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you a week from now. But thanks for tuning in, and we'll talk again.
See ya.